A healing and reconciliation session is about exploring together as a group this whole principle of a non-interventional empathic accompaniment of a person that has a very present issue or pain or something to explore like that. So as a group we come together and we learn many, many things, in my opinion. The first thing we learn is to develop slowly the feelers, the sensitivity as to determining when something is alive or really present, or when we are more in a therapeutic fishing expedition. I say this with respect, even if it doesn't sound, but I know therapy has been useful for many people, but non-interventional empathic presence is very different from a therapeutic approach in which I ask you a question or you try very hard to get to the pain. In empathic presence, we don't do either of the two. I'm not guiding you. And the fact that you have suffered, where it was 10 minutes ago or 20 years ago, doesn't mean that that suffering might be available right now for healing. So that's the first, respect for life, to see when something is available. The fact that you have somebody there who you trust, that you have a group that gives you support, doesn't mean at all that that pain is alive, that life has that pain ready for healing for you now. So that's the first thing that I find very exciting too. Nothing is more boring or disturbing for me than a session of accompanying a person when we're just doing it because, you know, the person really would like it, or the person really would look for that right now. And that's sort of the hard way how you learn to be very honest as the person who is going to be present to the other person, to really interact and say, hey, I'm not really connecting with these, and to start a process to assess if that's present in a way that's enriching to both. Then the other thing we learn is that although I will be the person in this case, in this healing and reconciliation session, giving the person empathic support, empathic presence, not giving but being there with the support, the group is active, not active in the verbal part of the empathic process, but active in presence in many different layers. And the most interesting and exciting for me is that people get to monitor their reactions to other people's pain. Essentially their own philosophy, their own idiosyncrasy around pain, their own habits around pain. So this I found extremely precious, because the person can really then explore and take gentle and not very loud notes, so as not to distract the person who's in the process, but the person can then look for how am I receiving this pain. When the session is really deep and intense, then people get sometimes to feel enormous resistance, and I will give them some clues as to what to do. And the notes they take are useful for the post-empathic process learning period. The third thing that we learn is that once the person, if it happens that there's a person that does a deep process, we learn all the sort of protocol or sensitivity etiquette as to how are we present with a person that has gone deep into a process, and how do we give them any expression after they have come back. People that have done a deep process enjoy, in many instances, since they have access to a space that has a different sense of time and space, they enjoy hearing from the group. But mostly they don't enjoy hearing stories, advice, counseling, unsolicited education, and many other things that people end up expressing to them. This is not because there is a dogma about it, but because the person in that moment is not able to receive anything else than very lived experiences, very full, resonant vivencia, as I call it, lived experience of the moment. So I coach the groups as to how to be present with a person that has come back from a deep space. I find that learning very, very exciting too. So this is what would happen in an empathic healing and reconciliation session. And of course, in such a session, I would talk much slower than I have talked in this video, in which I wanted to excite you or inspire you to come to this session.
Thank you. And then just one last question. What happens if, you know, there's something that somebody wants to work with and it isn't really up at that moment? Then what would be your plan B, for instance?
Well, if nobody has something up in a way that I would see that it's a substance for an empathic reconciliation session, or there is many other ways in which we can explore this issue of non-interventional non-interventional empathic presence. And we can do some exercises. We can do role plays of difficult situations in which we challenge each other gently in a controlled sort of exercise, and then learn to be in non-interventional empathic presence.